It was the kind of storm you only see once in a lifetime, wind howling like wolves, snow swallowing roads whole, and the cold so sharp it cut through leather and denim. And in the middle of that storm, 15 bikers, men and women hardened by miles on the road, found themselves stranded, lost in the white blur, engines sputtering, hope fading. They had no idea their salvation that night would come from the last person anyone would expect, a frail, gray-haired widow living alone at the edge of town. The story begins with that knock on her door. She could barely hear it over the roar of the storm, but when she opened it, she found 15 frostbitten faces staring back at her. Big, tattooed men, women with windswept hair and cracked lips, all of them shivering, desperate, and embarrassed to be begging a stranger for shelter. She didn't hesitate, not for a second. "Come in, children," she said softly, like she was talking to lost grandkids instead of bikers. She wrapped them in blankets, stirred soup on the stove, and gave up her own bed so the weakest among them could sleep. At first, the bikers were uneasy. They weren't used to being treated gently. They were used to suspicion, to people crossing the street when they walked by, to doors closing instead of opening. But this old woman never asked their names, never flinched at their tattoos or leather jackets. She just cared for them. She told them about her late husband, who had been a trucker, and how she knew the road could be cruel. Slowly, the bikers opened up, laughing around her table, sharing stories like they hadn't in years. For one night, they weren't outlaws or wanderers, they were family. Morning came, and the storm had passed. The bikers left quietly, not wanting to disturb the lady who had given them so much. She didn't ask for anything in return. She simply waved them off with a smile and told them to ride safe. But what she didn't know was that they weren't done with her yet. The very next morning, she stepped outside and gasped. Her little driveway, once empty and buried in snow, now stretched into a line of gleaming motorcycles, one after another, until she lost count at 100. The road outside her modest home was filled with leather jackets and shining chrome. Not just the 15 riders she had saved, but dozens more, answering a call that had spread through their brotherhood overnight. They had all come to thank her. One by one, they stepped forward. Some carried bags of groceries. Others hauled firewood. A few handed her envelopes filled with cash, insisting she use it to fix her roof, repair her fence, or simply live comfortably. One even promised to come back every week to shovel snow from her driveway. They didn't just repay her kindness, they multiplied it. The roughest, toughest bikers in the state became her protectors, her extended family. And the woman who had once lived alone now had 100 sons and daughters, all ready to ride for her. The story spread like wildfire. Locals who had feared the bikers now looked at them differently. They saw men and women who could be fierce, but also fiercely loyal, capable of immense gratitude. And at the center of it all was one elderly woman who taught them that kindness has no walls, no labels, no conditions. Years later, whenever riders passed through that small town, they'd slow down, tip their helmets, and make sure the grandma of the bikers was doing well. She never asked for the recognition, never wanted the spotlight. But her small act of compassion had created a ripple that changed not only the bikers' lives, but the whole community. And that's the heart of the story. Sometimes the greatest revolutions don't come from strength or power, but from kindness in its simplest form. One old woman, one warm house, one open heart, and the world outside her door was never the same again. So if you're hearing this now, ask yourself, what doors can you open? What warmth can you share? Because the smallest act of kindness, even in the coldest storm, might just bring 100 blessings to your doorstep.